Is this contraption just a gimmick, or is it actually worthwhile? Will it really build muscle? That's what I'm going to explore here, for the most part, in this video about the Bells of Steel Chest Expander. This contraption has been around for longer than most of you that are viewing this video. So, I mean, even if I just grab a random Strength and Health magazine out of my library. So let's see, this is from June 1958. And sure enough, rubber and steel cables are for sale. I'll definitely give you the history of the chest expander, and I'll get into some price comparisons at the end of the video. Should you just get bands? Should you go on Amazon and just get one of the $20 or $30 chest expanders that are available? I'll answer all those questions by the end of this video. And if you decide to purchase anything, please make sure you get into the description of this video. It's right under the like button, and use my affiliate links. When you shop through my affiliate links, it helps out the channel and I greatly appreciate it. So starting out, let's just address the name of this contraption. It's a chest expander, and that confuses almost everybody. They look at it, they see people go like that, and they say, hey, I know my biology, that's your back, that's your shoulders, your rear delts, that's not expanding your chest. Well, that's because they're focusing on the word chest and not the word expander. And if you think about it, as you're pulling outward, you are expanding your chest. So the name is somewhat accurate. Historically, there is a purpose behind it that I'll get into in a couple of minutes. But just so you know, there are other gadgets that have been around for just as long as the chest expander that do work your pectoral muscles. For example, a really good quality crusher was made by York Barbell, and when you crush it, hence the name, it really works your chest. There were cheaper crushers like this one. This came from Weider. Same idea, you crush and work the chest. Really hoping that doesn't snap. If you want to see a dedicated video on the crushers, make sure to drop a comment and let me know. Maybe I'll film one in the future. So then, the chest expander is mainly working your back and shoulder muscles. It can work other muscles, and I'll show you a demonstration of several different exercises you can do with this, but first let's just look at what it's made up of. So the cheaper quality chest expanders will have wooden handles, will have thinner wire almost handle frames. They'll have less than 7 springs. This one has 7 springs. I took off 4 of them because 3 is the right amount for the exercises I'm using it for right now. However, it goes up to 7. This particular one has rotating handles. That's another feature you want to look for in a chest expander. And the handles on the Bells of Steel have a light knurling on them. I'd say that it's better than like a generic barbell's knurling. It does have a little bit of grip to it, but I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being like super grippy, sharp knurling, 1 being nothing at all, this is like a 3. So it's just enough to kind of catch your hand, but it's not going to grind into your hand or do any damage. There's all my extra springs. The springs are attached by these small carabiners, which is a nice feature. You'll see on Amazon when you look at some of the cheaper versions of chest expanders that it's just clips, and these carabiners are a lot easier to operate and make it a lot easier to take them on and off. The Bells of Steel branding is laser engraved on the handle, and this is made out of stainless steel, which means that, you know, there's a really good chance it's not going to rust. The spinning motion is quite smooth. There's really no grinding or anything there. I was impressed with that. And the springs have a 20-pound tension each. So 7 springs, 20 pounds, you're up to 140 pounds of tension. It actually says on Bells of Steel website 153 pounds of tension. I'm not sure how that works. I've been thinking through that for a while. If you know, by all means, drop a comment. When you look on Amazon, sometimes it's 10, 13 pounds of tension, or it's not even stated. So with the Bells of Steel, you get a high quality spring that is 20 pounds of tension. The Bells of Steel is far from the first chest expander, like I said, and it's also not the first modern high-quality chest expander. So Robert Baraban, who also makes grippers and other implements in that kind of wheelhouse. He put out a chest expander a couple years ago, and it is sold overseas, and it currently retails for 197 euros, which comes out to like 227 US dollars. And oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. So it looks like it's very good quality. I've had several people comment on my various videos that, wow, you need to check out the Robert Baraban chest expander. But that was just a little too pricey for me. So when Bells of Steel came out with their chest expander at $93, that was more in what I think is a reasonable price for a high quality chest expander. But before we get too far into pricing, I'll get back to that at the end of the video. Let's just get into exactly what do you do with this. So before I get up and move around, I'll just show you like the quintessential movement, which is just to grasp it in front of you, and then without it taut at all, you flex and pull it back. I'm trying not to hit my mic. And that's working your rear delts and that whole piece of your upper back. You can also do overhead and different angles of that, you know, come up like this and then come down. You can change your hand position, you know, switch it out like this. And now you're working more of the traps when you come down and your hands are facing outward, knuckles in. And you can really feel this one in the traps. I like this a lot. So you can step on it. I know I'm probably out of frame here, but when you step on it now, you can do some upright movements like this. If you have two of these, you could do that and do like an upright row. You can also switch it around and do bicep curls. But I'll be honest, I don't really do bicep curls that much with these. That would be more if I traveled with it. And you can certainly fold this up, put it in a suitcase. I will definitely travel with this in the future. But here in the gym, really, those chest expanding movements, those back movements are what I like the best. So one of my other favorites for the back and for triceps is to do the archer. So you set up like you're shooting a bow, you know, bow and arrow. And this is kind of like a face pull and a row had a baby. So you're coming back almost like a row, but then it extends even more back like a face pull. So you feel it in both your lats and your rear delts. And then if you really want to extend it, you can go out with your tricep like this. So the archer is one of my favorites for that reason, because you can really hit like several segments of the movement. You can add more springs. I only have 3 on here, and just do a hard row and back. Or if you keep it a little lighter, you can do both and a tricep extension. The other way I do tricep extensions is overhead. So I'll sit down on a bench, and with it behind me, I push up. The last thing I'll mention is just how I do program this into my training. And that would be that the most often that I use this is as a finishing exercise when it's not programmed. So I almost always use my crusher or my expander or my iron horseshoe, which I didn't even show you that, but if you want to see that, drop a comment. And I just burn out with these. So if I'm working upper back, if I've already done various exercises that day, then I will just do these 20 of them, 2 sets of 20, even more, until I can't do them anymore. When I program it in, I like to program in an accessory movement with the chest expander, like flies, so that I'm really working my upper back and rear shoulders. So where I used to have face pulls, for example, on my bench press day, nice compliment to bench press, I replaced face pulls with these. Then down the line, I put in those archers, and that's the way that I program them. Is this as versatile as bands? No. So let's get into that now that you've seen some of the movements and talk about the bands versus the chest expander. I'm no stranger to bands. I mean, I got all kinds of bands. I got ones bigger than this. I have the monster bands from Rogue, and then last year at Home Gym Con, I picked up some bands from ATX. They were just handing them out. By the way, Home Gym Con tickets are 10% off with code VINTAGE. Check that out. So, tons of bands. I've used them on barbells with band pegs on my power rack. I've used them for warming up and stretching, things like that. I've used them to do assisted pull-ups. Bands are extremely versatile. They're easy to travel with too, unless they get tangled like this. And you're certainly not going to, you know, scare TSA or set off any of the alarms with bands the way you would with this big metal contraption. So I'd probably toss the bands in my carry-on, but the chest expander, that's going to be checked luggage. As far as whether you should just save money and get bands, well, if you go with premium quality, like Bells of Steel have their lines of bands, you're not really saving that much money. It's $93 for the Bells of Steel chest expander, and some of these band sets get up into like $300. Of course, Amazon has cheaper options. I do think that the decision making has to be between the usage. So you've got to think about your use case for bands and a chest expander. Because if you can only buy one or the other, then maybe you're going to lean more towards bands because they're more versatile in your home gym. On the other hand, if you're complementing your home gym, or you are just looking for one piece of equipment that's going to really work your muscles hard, you might want to go with the chest expander, because to get 140 pounds resistance like the chest expander, I'm going to have to link together a bunch of bands or get some very heavy bands. And that starts to feel quite different than the chest expander. Because you see, with the chest expander, the rolling handle makes a huge difference. When I'm coming out like this, my hands are rolling on this rolling handle. Whereas with bands, God, I really got to untangle this. Whereas with bands, nothing's rotating and it doesn't feel that great in my hands. So there are key differences like that when it comes to the actual usage and what you're going to feel whenever you're working out with them. You can shorten up your grip on the bands, which you can't do with the chest expander. So that's the last thing that I would mention comparing bands to the chest expander, is that with stainless steel, the chest expander's only threat, which is rust, is probably not going to come around that often, at least this one from Bells of Steel. Whereas with bands, all it takes is one bad little cut, one bad little kind of wear and tear, and whack, you're going to snap this humongous rubber band and potentially injure yourself. And that's a good segue to vintage chest expanders. So look at this quality piece of equipment. I'm pretty sure this was made by Weider. Similar design was in that ad by York that I showed you earlier. It's got a wooden handle. It's kind of a wire frame with a bracket that has, geez, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 different bands, and these are rubber, and you can see over the years, the age, they are not really doing their job. They have dry rotted for sure underneath this kind of nylon coating, and some of them have been lost. But you can still see, if you look on Amazon, that there are chest expanders with rubber bands, and I would avoid those right away. Don't go with these. But chest expanders go far beyond the 1960s and 1950s. Believe it or not, they even predate barbells. Chest expanders are one of the most original home gym items. So let's look into the history. As I alluded to earlier, the name chest expander comes from its original purpose, and that was to expand the chest. And it was actually a medical item. So way back in the 1800s, 1830 to 1840, there were ads for these chest expanders that would help you with posture, that would help rehab any type of injuries to the upper torso, and that was the purpose. But then around 1840, we see the first chest expanders for exercise. And that's where things take off. Now, early barbells are coming around in like 1860s, so 1840s predates even the barbell. And that's where the chest expander is really, it's a champ when it comes to home gym use. Moving forward, old-time strongmen like Eugene Sandow are the ones that really popularized it. And Sandow had his own line of chest expanders, and he mass-produced them, he sold them via catalog, and he espoused the merits of this apparatus. He had his own training program with various movements that we still use today. The movements I showed you earlier in this video are in Sandow's guide to the chest expander. From there, we get into the 1960s, and to bring up York Barbell again, guys like John Grimmick using the chest expander, and he loved the chest expander. He used it for all kinds of movements, but primarily the lats and the back and the rear delts. Reg Park, he used the chest expander as well. I could go on and on with the various notable names that used it, but then you come up all the way into the golden era of bodybuilding and it's still being used. Where did it go away? Like, why did it disappear? You know, it used to be in movies. I remember watching The Goonies and seeing the older brother using the chest expander, and eventually, you know, spoiler alert, but they wrap him up in the chair and that's how they get away. I think it had to do with the rise of exercise machines. So we saw Arnold, for example, using barbells predominantly, but then moving more and more and more towards machines. And bodybuilders, as they're putting on mass, are using machines. So an apparatus like this isn't being used as much once we get up into the 1980s as it was in the 1960s. It was still around. You still had all kinds of chest expanders in magazines like Strength and Health for sale because for home gym use they were around, but they were getting mass produced and the quality was coming down and coming down and coming down. And that's where we get to a price comparison now, because the same thing pretty much extends to everything you see on Amazon. None of the chest expanders on Amazon are of the Bells of Steel chest expanders quality, at least none that I see. That's why they're all $20, $30, maybe $40. Bells of Steel, theirs is $93-ish. It's like 92 and change. So double the price, maybe triple the price, but you're getting stainless steel. You're getting 7 springs that are 20 pounds resistance with carabiners. You're getting a knurled handle that rotates and a solid handle frame. If you just look at all those qualities and compare it to the ones on Amazon, you'll see the difference. So if you want a chest expander that's just to like warm up or to do, you know, some rehab, prehab stuff, then maybe you could get one on Amazon. But if you want a chest expander to try to build muscle and actually program it into your training, I suggest you go with Bells of Steel. Robert Baraban, a lot of respect for his company and for the products that he makes. However, $227 plus tax and shipping from overseas to the United States is just too much. So that's why I can't suggest going with his. I hope that helps. If you decide to buy any of the chest expanders that I mentioned, you can go through the links in the description of this video to really help out Vintage Weights PGH. If you're still watching, you're a Vintage Weights PGH champion and I appreciate you. So please know that every comment, every like, every subscribe means a lot to me. So thank you so much for watching.